All right, welcome back, Business Freedom Podcast listeners. We're going to have a good time today. Greg Miller from Kalamazoo, Michigan, right?
You got it.
Yeah, Michigan is with us, and I've gotten to know Greg over the last probably couple of years now, and just the more I get to know about a couple of things: how he runs his business, how he views his business fitting into his life, and then how he shows up in the other areas of his life. And we had a chance to chat last week, just reflecting on life as kids and life now. And so we're going to have a good time today. Greg, give us like a 1 or 2 minute, like just team, what you got going on, kind of hook us in with what your team looks like and why we would want to listen to you.
All right. Well, last year we closed 336 sites, which puts us as number one in our marketplace. Relatively small, decent sized marketplace, but we're still the number one team in the area, which is solid. As far as team goes, we just added our third admin late last year. We don't outsource anything. Not that I think that's a good plan, not to not outsource, but we just don't. So we have 3 paid staff. We just added this year our second listing person. So we had 1 listing person up until about 2 months ago. And I have 6 agents, buyer's agents, and just hired, have 4 more that are new or just getting started.
Awesome. So last year you did 300 plus units with 6 agents, 1 listing specialist, and 2 admin, basically.
Basically, yes.
Okay, awesome. That's a pretty lean, mean machine. I like it.
We have lean prices, so the machine is better off being lean.
Yeah, so that's what I love. I love talking. I am blessed with like an $11,000 commission check. What's your average commission check?
Average commission check is
roughly
5,000 to 6,000.
Yeah. So here's a guy that you all want to listen to because he is running a very profitable business on half of what I make in Charlotte. So it doesn't all translate, right? It's not like, his people are half the price of my people, or his buyer's agents want to make half as much as our buyer's agents. So let's kind of dig into, how long you've been in real estate?
16 years.
And when did you sort of really get the team up and running?
About a year ago, maybe soon now. I've been working on it for about 10 years, but most of those 10 years was just thinking about working on it. So probably in the last 6 to 7 years, slowly, we increased by 20 to 40 units a year.
Yeah.
Period. We have never had like 100 to 200. We had 100 to 122, 122 to 148. We had 1 year where we went up like 50 units, which was remarkable, but it's been a slow process.
Yeah, that's awesome. And there's a lesson in that too, because a lot of guys in our industry will just like go after huge growth, and they'll spend all this money. The growth won't actually happen, and they'll be in the hole. And so I've been calling it robust, healthy growth, right? It's 15 to 20% a year. It's not this 50 to 100% that everybody wants. So that's awesome. Yep. All right. So let's talk about the different phases of growth. So maybe go back to the day where it was just you, an assistant, maybe you're hiring that first buyer agent. What was life like? How much did it suck? What worked well? What didn't work well? Kind of the reality of our industry is that, what is it? What's the stat we heard? It's 43,000 out of 2.4 million agents sell 25 homes or more. So it is such a small, we need to just talk about the early phase of growth so we can sort of encourage others to get off their butts and do something about their lame real estate business. So talk about that first stage of growth.
Yeah. So I think it's something to think about. When I started, cell phones, internet there wasn't what we have now. People doing even 50 deals was unheard of. Nobody did 100. I'd never even heard of that. And there wasn't there was a telephone and a phone book, and I had a pager, and then we'd stop and use pay phones to call people back when they paged us. So in one sense, it was, the time wise was a little better. People were able, I was listening to a Facebook thing yesterday about, and somebody saying, well, I meet with buyers on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I'm like, wow, yeah, that probably doesn't work anymore. But I used to do that, like that. "Hey, can you meet next Tuesday or Thursday?" There wasn't the immediate demand. Then as I started to try to grow and do more, it's 24/7. Now I have a ability, or I forget bad and only remember the good. But yeah, I worked all the time, and I'd sit in my garage drinking beer in my car, thinking I do not want to go inside and talk to my kids because I can't take one more person taking from me, or that's what I felt at the time. Now I
Yeah.
look back, I go, that was fun, that was exciting. But at the time, it was pretty rough. And then, of
Yeah.
course, we went through a downturn in Michigan that everybody went through in 2008, 9. We got hit uh, probably harder than anybody, and that was right when I knew what I was doing. Things were taking off, starting to do well, and then boom, our value homes went from, at the time, maybe 120 to 50 and 60, and we were doing short sale after short sale. In fact, that's about all we did, because I wasn't in the foreclosure business, but there was foreclosures or short sales. Pick one.
Yeah. So maybe, okay. So, and what does the team look like when you're first scaling up? When do you hire the first assistant? Did you hire buyer agents? What was the complexion of the team?
So my wife was a office manager at a law firm, so she, did the typical. I quit my job. She quit her job to have a baby. I quit my job to become rich. Then we somehow had another baby. Then she had a herniated disc, and she's laying on the couch, and I'm working all the time, and it wasn't really well thought out, surprisingly. And I found myself needing help, and she was able to lay there and maybe help out. So she started as our admin. She actually worked as our admin for a couple years without getting paid, which I corrected mainly because it skewed our books and made me look like I was running this pretty good business, and really I wasn't, because I had unpaid staff. So that was our first admin hire. Then I had a business partner that I started with that took over the listing side. Then we hired a buyer's agent. Took me, really, really sharp young guy, doing well, and my income kept going down. My checkbook kept going down, and it took me probably a year to figure out that he was closing deals and it was costing me money, like literally costing me money, because my splits were basically upside down at that time. I'm pretty good at numbers too, and pretty find it enjoyable to track and to read financial statements. And I was pretty surprised how long it took me to figure that out, because we were doing more deals, we were growing, clients were happy, everybody was happy. We were just running out of money. We had chronic $20,000-$30,000 in credit card, had some flip houses going on, market crashed. I misplaced $50,000 at that time, meaning I asked, where is that 50,000? Well, you already took it. No, I didn't. I don't have it. Oh, it's gone. And I ended up sleeping in rental properties to flip those and get those back. I probably should have foreclosed on them, given the loss of value in them, but we held on and it's worked out.
Yeah. So I remember you telling me that story. I want to go a little bit. What got you through that time where, like you said, your children were with you too, right?
Yeah, we had young children at the time. Currently,
Yeah.
I have four children. They're currently 12, 14, 16, and 18.
Wow. That's
So they're
a lot.
retiring.
That's a lot of teenagers.
Absolutely.
I guess in one year you'll have four teenagers. So, but when it's not good, and what was it in you that sort of kept you going through that time?
I had really, really clear goals, and I don't know that they're their best goals, but I had really clear goals on that. I wanted to own a business, at least a team, if that's a legitimate business. That's what I wanted to do. I really wanted to get to 300 units, because I heard about it at this time, and I thought that would be something I've never heard of and amazing. I'd be the number one in my marketplace. And I just kept focused on that, and everything else almost didn't matter. You know, it'd be terrible. I'd go to sleep, almost Groundhog Day. Like I'd wake up, you know, radio go off, and I'd just go on and do the same thing, fall in the mud puddle again, and then get back up and do it again. But I had really clear goals, and my objections were not real clear. They were kind of fuzzy, like, oh, that's this part of my life isn't working out. Well, I'll get to that. I'll fix this. But I was really focused on what I wanted to accomplish, and I made everything else work out.
Yeah. What, let's talk about a little bit about you brought it up, and it's a worthy topic, especially for anyone that is just sort of starting to scale their team. And it's a mistake. I talked to a guy the other day who, over the last 3 years, he's had like 7 million of GCI total for 3 years, and he has debt to show for it. So no increased net worth, and he just took out a $125,000 home equity line. And so, talk about the chasing growth versus putting a business together, an economic model, putting an economic model in place so that as you scale, you have more money and more time and less stress. We talk about real estate B school, time, money, and stress. So why did it take you so long? What did you do at first, with your splits? How did you sort of transition to that awareness? I think that's such an amazingly valuable lesson.
Yeah, so this was probably somewhere around 2010 and 11. We hadn't even cracked 100 units at that time, but we were doing well. I mean, this is a while ago. Market's down. Our market was down until 2013. Certainly 2012 was really rough. And I started tracking numbers, getting some financials. I think I was probably doing those myself by hand or in QuickBooks, and thinking about, I've always wanted to have a net worth of $1 million. I don't come from a successful family, no business owners, no salespeople, almost no college level person. So I didn't have a lot of knowledge. Come to find out, I thought I was smart, but I really didn't have that background. But I thought having a net worth of $1 million and having a business with cash in the bank to make decisions with would be really good. So I wanted $100,000 in my business account, and I wanted a net worth of $1 million. So then I started looking at my business, how that would reflect on those goals, and it would have took lifetimes to get there. So I realized at that time, and I just kind of kept things real simple. I go, wait a minute, if this is a business, we have a few things. We're going to need agents, we're going to need staff, and we're going to need profit. Otherwise, I'll just sell the stuff for myself. So I kind of took those three things, divided them in third, and go, well, that's what I can kind of afford. I can afford a third towards profit and my salary. And maybe that at that time I couldn't. I thought, wow, that's kind of aggressive and a lot. Now I'm like, oh, that was really not that aggressive and a lot, no matter what level you're at. And then I can afford about a third, and nobody was doing this in my marketplace. I don't know if anybody was doing this a lot anywhere, but I can afford a third to agents. So that didn't go over well. Like I was paying high splits, and I'm like, wait, I can afford to pay you a third, and I can afford about a third for everything else. We weren't generating any leads, so that wasn't a problem. We had some staff, and I was paying them pretty lightly. Splits with office space, and that type of thing. So I kind of split it in thirds, and then we dismantled a little bit, and then started doing something of which nobody said could be done, which is paying agents less. But my idea was, well, I'll pay them less, I'll help them succeed, they'll make more money, they'll be more successful, and it'll all work out. Come to find out, that was probably what a lot of people I had already either known and they didn't tell me, or I didn't ask, or simultaneously a bunch of people go, hey, wait, this isn't working.
Yeah, that's awesome. And the first book I read was the Millionaire Real Estate Agent, and that's the model that Gary prescribes in that book. And I'm in Gary's like top 100 mastermind, and I am confident 95% of that room does not run a 33% profit model. And I'm confident that when they're putting up billboards and they're spending like tons of money on radio and TV, and there's a guy in my market who spends $100,000 a month on mass media, And I'm like, dude, I know what it does in my market because I've got the best 2 endorsements in my market and he's got all the others. And I'm like, I know it doesn't return. It's just an ego play, but he has to sell like 100 homes a year to make money.
Yeah.
So are you in production?
I'm in incidental production. Last year, I think I sold, I don't think I sold 30 houses, but I don't want to take too much credit. Most of those were, hey, could you write this up? We list this house and then somebody takes it over. This year, my goal is to keep that at 15. I think I'm at 6 or 7 right now. And mostly it's all me at this point. I get lazy. I'm like, you know what? I'll just handle this because I don't want to have a conversation with another person and so on and so forth. So, but I'm getting a lot better at it.
Yeah.
But it's certainly not my focus. And what's been a real challenge for me is to accept the fallout from that. And the only way I could do that was to really focus on building my team members to help my agents. And that is my number one focus, to get agents on my team to be successful, to have a 6-figure income, and to have a net worth of $1 million or more. And that is my only focus. And then once that becomes my focus, then everything else takes second place. So all of a sudden losing a deal or somebody not taking care of my friends or family or loved ones the way I think I would, which is probably skewed in my mind anyhow, becomes a lot easier.
There's 2 things there that I want to dive deep into. What you just said, I spent probably easily, I hired my first buyer agent in 2009. And then, so probably 8 years not serving my team. Really just, the team was there to serve me and make my life better and for me to work 1 day a week. And, completely have reversed it in the last 2 or 3 years in both businesses. But let's just spend a minute there. I think as a team leader, if you show up where your mission every day is to help your agents, whatever that income number is for you, but then also to teach them how to build net worth, which is probably teaching them how to budget, teaching them how to not spend more than they make. And so that's a very unique thing. So how does that translate every day for you?
Yeah, I'm not sure it's something that people want to necessarily go out and do. It's just what makes me happy. And so my idea was I could do it one of 2 ways. I could hire people and kind of grind them to get production. And don't say that even negatively, just micromanage, or I could try to help people succeed. And my thought is if I could get 10, 20 people to relatively high income, high net worth, I'm probably going to be doing pretty well. So it's once again not real well thought out. It's just my idea, and I generally enjoy doing it. Yeah. So that is my entire focus. I absolutely, when I know my team members' net worth, their bills, their credit scores, where they're working at. I got a lot of young people on my team, and they're buying rental properties. They're doing construction projects. They're building wealth outside of real estate. And that has become my entire focus, which there's been some things that happened that were not intentional. I've never had to recruit, and I have to turn people away from our team. And I'm not a super strong leader. In general, I'm not somebody who probably you would pick to lead the sports team or the group, but this atmosphere has created people literally come and can I join your team, mostly by referral from team members, because there's a really, really good energy that we have because of that.
Yeah, dude, I'll tell you, it's easy to say servant leadership, right? That's like even a corporate term. And, but you heard my paper rustling because on my Tuesday planner, I wrote down, the fact that your team members' credit score and net worth. Yeah. That to me, I've never heard that before, honestly. And maybe that happens in other teams and I don't know about it, but
and maybe it's weird. I mean, maybe that's not appropriate. I don't know, but I know I've got people that are struggling. I know if they're struggling in their relationships and marriage, and not that I'm pretty good at this. I'm pretty good at coaching people and helping them in general. And I done that for a while, though I don't have any sort of degree or certification that would give me credit to that. But I've done that, whether it's in my church or just people in general go, hey, can you help me? I don't know what I'm doing. I'm poor. I'm this, I'm that. So I'm pretty good at it. So it just lends to my skill set maybe, and it makes me feel good. But I know how much they owe on their credit scores. I got them all set up. They all need to be reporting their monthly net worth. Then we meet and we go over it, and I go, hey, what's going on here? And they're like, well, I owe all this money. I'm like, well, and then we have real discussion that I wish, and I'm pretty good at numbers and this type of thing, but nobody really had this discussion with me that maybe debt is not, for some people, debt is not the issue. It's that you don't have income. You don't have passive income, and you could eliminate your debt. You're still going to be broke and homeless because you have no income if something happens to you. So we're really focused on a balance there between eliminating debt, which is good, but more so, what are you going to do when the real estate income from sales goes away? And I do not want a bunch of people living at the homeless shelter because they were making 150,000. Now they're making zero and they had nothing that's going to continue to produce income.
That is amazing. And then what was the other thing that you touched on? You were talking about, I'll forget it now. Let's transition into the next phase of growth. So sounds like that phase was to get through that complete crap market. Yep. And I imagine that the tough market lasted longer in your area than it did. It bounced back in about 2012. Oh, I know what I was going to talk about. As a team leader, I remember very clearly the commitment to stop working with buyers and the commitment to get out of production. And it sounds like you're sort of incidental production, like you said, but talk about, we see a lot of real estate team leaders, sometimes because their economic model is wrong, but getting out of production. Do you have any thoughts there?
So one, I'm not that caught up in that. I have clear goals, clear financial goals, clearer goals than ever for my family, and what I want that to look like. So if the highest thing for me to do is be in production, I'm okay with that. Though, I'm getting older and I'm not real good about working weekends and evenings. But if that were the case, if I needed to be, I'm not too disappointed in that. But my number one priority is to help my agents succeed. And I think that is my number one goal. So as long as I focus on that, getting out of production is easy. If I start not focusing on that, it for me is really hard. I suppose I'm greedy, fearful, a little lazy when it comes to that transition. But I had some significant, I remember I was doing something, and some friend of mine wanted to see houses. He sent me over house lists. And I'm like, no problem. And I had all this stuff, I'm doing coaching calls, I'm working, I'm doing rental property. And I go, no problem, come over, I'll show you the houses. He gets in the car. I go, we're going to go this, and this. He goes, those are the wrong houses. That's a list I didn't want to see. And I remember looking at him, I go, well, that's all I've got. I've set them up. We're going to go look at these. He goes, and he looks at me like, well, I sent you 5 I wanted to see, 5 I didn't want to see. And we looked at all 5 you didn't want to see. Cause I got an hour, it's in my schedule and I'm going to do it. So we looked at those houses. I get back. I have no idea if this guy's even can buy a house. And I remember thinking, what am I doing? This is not really good. So I push myself to a breaking point where I go, oh, Chris, can you help this guy? Cause he's sitting right there. I go, I just showed him the wrong houses and I don't even know if he can get a loan. And Chris is like, yeah. And I'm standing there and Chris, it works for me in buyer's agent. He just looks at me, he goes, could you shut the door when you leave? And I'm like, okay. And then what's funny is Chris showed this guy in a bunch of houses. He wanted a $200,000 house for $100,000. And he calls back and said he's going in a different direction. And I remember telling that guy, not meanly, but straightforward, like, that's not great. That's not great behavior. And I'm like, wow, that was a big change. Because for me, I was just kind of getting tugged this way and that way. And that from that point on, I realized that one, they can do it better than I can. They're probably better salespeople. They've got the time. I wasn't providing good service. And at the end of the day, I really care more about my agents than the buyers and the sellers. And not in a bad way, because through that caring, they're providing a high level of service. And without that caring, they're not going to provide the same level of service. And now I had the situation tonight. Somebody wants to see a house. I'm like, you know what? One house. What does it matter? But realistically, I'm now taking money out of my buyer's agent's pockets by doing that. And I don't care about the money. I don't need the money. I have plenty of it coming in, plenty of it sitting around. I'm just lazy to the point where, okay, Shane, could you show this guy a house tonight and sell him something? He says, absolutely. He's excited. He's going to make money. Everybody's happy.
Yeah. And that's the philosophy that I was getting at, you know, when as a team leader, it's one thing to set up your economic model wrong where you have to do production. But then it's another to take opportunity from your agents. And then
that was a turning point for me to when I see that.
Yeah. And it's the same thing. You know, we have showing agents and we don't allow our buyer agents to show homes because they would cherry pick, you know, so it's very clear that we're a team and that's cool. So what's the next big phase of growth? So you kind of get through that tough time. Where do you go from there and what unit count?
This was around 2010, 11. I think I'd started coaching, not as a worker coach, but being coached at that time. So my eyes were a little open up. Our market's still really down. Where I can see where we can now get to 100 units, which is a pretty big deal at the time. You know, it's 10 years ago almost. And I started to realize like, oh, we need some stuff. Hired the lowest level coaching you could possibly pay for. I found it in the back of Realtor magazine, and talked to them 3 times because it was $99 a month, and I wanted to know what happens if I can't pay for that $99. Is there I need something in the writing saying I can cancel. Turns out that coaching company quit offering that after I negotiated my back out over that $99 a month, and that was probably in 2010 or 11. We hit 100 units. 2012 got really bad. I went out on 3 listing appointments in small, kind of relatively rural areas, you know, bedroom communities. And every one of them, the foreclosure rate was 98% in those neighborhoods. And these were just normal sellers moving for work because they lost their job, had to move somewhere. And I remember thinking, well, this is not good because they wanted 120, the houses are selling for 50, and things got bad. And that was 2012. And we'd hit 100 units at that time, which was kind of a big deal. Still struggling with time, still feeling like I'm working all the time, though realistically I was just at work all the time. I wasn't really working, but I couldn't leave because I felt scared. I think I felt more comfortable at work than sitting at home, and I couldn't relax. Big turning point at that time, I think it was 2011 or 12. My wife went to Japan to visit a church that she knows of from her childhood. Kids are at my mom's. I'm at home, flipping on the TV, and I start watching a Tony Robbins infomercial. I'm like, I watched the whole, I must have watched it for 3 hours. And I remember thinking, I really don't have any money, but I just called them and I said, hey, give me that stuff. And they're like, which one? I go, all of it. And I just started running out my credit card, and I bought particularly the Time of Your Life program. And that was probably one of the biggest turning points. I had a real emotional problem with time. I felt there was scarcity, felt like I didn't have enough of it. People were taking it. And I listened to that program probably 35 times. Probably the first 10 times I didn't even understand what he was saying. I just listened to it over and over. And that was one of the biggest turning points in my career, oddly enough. Now we approach 2013, 12, 13. We're starting to add agents at this point. We add another admin. So we put somebody on the listing side and the transaction coordinator and managing everything outside, and then progress through until we are now.
Yeah, let's dig into that. Kind of our last deep dive here. Let's go into the relationship with time.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think probably around that time, maybe in 2009, I got into Tony Robbins. Same sort of thing. I didn't go through it 35 times, but I probably listened to that one.
Smarter than me. You don't have to. I'm fairly slow. Yeah. So my relationship with time was not good. Um, I thought it was just reality. I got, I started out in real estate. I remember I did some weird stuff, which all of us do, which now looking back, I think is funny. I think at the time I wore that as a badge of honor. Like, I'm working harder than everybody. Look at me. I think I had a hard time accepting that, but I was working harder, and I didn't come from the right background. I didn't have the right knowledge base. I didn't really know anything about time management because my family didn't manage their time. They went to work, they got paid, they died. That was kind of that was it. And there was retirement for some of them, a little bit at least, but there wasn't. Nobody had to manage their time, and I always felt there was scarcity. So what I did is I started watching people the most successful people I knew who I could be around, and I watched that they were doing way more than me, and they didn't seem rushed or scarce. They didn't have this scarcity, and I just started trying to do everything I could. I started making lists, like, what are they doing that I am not? And I eventually, the thing that changed it is I started saying out loud, instead of like, I'm so busy, I got to get going. Why? Come on, we got to do this. I would start saying, boy, I have so much time. I just can't believe how much time I have. This is amazing. Boy, the day's going by so slow. So I could not change it from the inside out, but when I said it, which was relatively ridiculous, I would then change it. Another thing I did at that time, I was running a lot. I kind of get into things. I was running a lot, and I would start being thankful for things. And at first I would say that out loud. And I remember the first run I was going, I'm going to start saying that I'm thankful. Tony Robbins said to, I'm going to do it. And I could not think of anything. I'm like, I'm running from my home. I'm mad at my wife. My kids are tearing out my house. I'm running down this road. And I remember I go, I'm thankful that these trees do not fall on me right now. I go there. And I remember like saying it out loud, like somebody's going to be impressed by my anger. But I started saying started being thankful for the amount of time I've had, and translate to now, I have I'm flipping a couple houses, remodeling an office. I own 19 rental properties, running this business, got 4 kids. I have so much time. I literally can't believe it. I mean, I'm not rushed for anything, but I changed my mindset. I guess I'm coaching, I do that. I'm not squeezed for time. I serve on 4 nonprofits, and I'm doing 10 times the amount of work that I was doing, or 10 times the amount of volume. And I have so much free time. I'm out of the office probably 8-9 weeks a year, either at conferences or with my family. Just came back from an RV trip. We're going on another one in a couple months. So that really was a turning point to speak out loud what, the opposite of what I was feeling, to be thankful. And then one other thing that's really changed my life is not judging people. And that is what I'm really capturing right now, is not judging even people that really need to be judged, or people that are bad, or people that are being mean to me. I'm not judging them. I'm curious about them. I'm very interested in why somebody would act that way, but I'm not judging them. And then even my family, like I've a lot of judgment there from my childhood. And when I quit judging, I'm like, I'm not sure that my perception of my childhood was really reality. I think my judgment turned into a reality for me. So those 3 things probably have changed my business more than anything. And they're really unrelated to lead generation or finances or anything like that.
Yeah. The mental game of all of it. And, sort of dealing with what, a lot of us that build businesses come from something in our childhood. It's something that we, I say, luckily I turned toward achievement as my, versus like the other path, a worse path that's not accepted publicly. We talked about something last week, which I want you to kind of end on a little bit here. It's, I'll let you tell a story about like when you went to your dad, like what his response was, and just the context of like, we see everyone doing all these things and we feel like we need to do it. Like, we need to go on a trip, because I just saw my friends on a Facebook, they just went on a trip. Like, you would go to your dad and you'd ask him for $100
Oh yeah.
to
Yeah, I remember when I was a kid. So this is my childhood. We weren't. I say we were poor. Everybody was poor back in the 70s. I mean, I knew one person, I think, that had a 6-figure income, I think, and that was the superintendent of our school, who kid was in our grade. I assume he made 6 figures, but this was before baseball players were making billions of dollars and Tiger Woods was making gazillions of dollars. I mean, people didn't have that amount of money where I was, at least. So when I say we were poor, my parents worked. We had a rundown house and in the country, but we were relatively normal, I think. But I felt poor. I hated wearing bad clothes and things. I remember coming home, asking my dad, I go, Dad, I'm going to play football. He goes, what? I go, I'm going to play football. He goes, well, how much does that cost? I go, it's $130 for the uniform and the pads and all the stuff. He goes, absolutely not. Absolutely not. He goes, have you looked at yourself? You're going to get killed. And I remember thinking, like, that is not cool. Like, that's not, I remember thinking to myself, that's not good parenting. Like, that's not encouraging. So that's the kind of background that I came up with, where I was excited, but $100 meant a lot to them.
Yeah. That's, yeah. And lately, probably in the last, well, since my father passed away 4 years ago, and even the 5-year sort of prolonged death that he had, just thinking that, he drank until I was 15. My parents got divorced. My mom, she did her best. Like, they just did their best. Like, I'm just convinced that he didn't want what happened to happen, and addiction's a weird thing. And my mom did her best, and she had to work 6 days a week. And, so that's just a lot of people do get stuck, in a rut, because they just define themselves by what they've experienced in the past. So what's a parting, even in a good market, a lot of agents and team leaders, are struggling. And it's a lot of time and stress and money issues. What advice do you have for someone that's struggling right now?
I have 2 pieces of advice, which very well could get deleted from if you edit this, but 2 things that the source is not to be quoted, because you wouldn't know them and they're not that successful. But 2 things that really have impacted me over time. One, somebody told me, and somebody who didn't have a team, barely sold real estate, but worked in management. And I was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And he goes, just keep pushing on it. Just keep. And that's what we really do. We don't have enough listing. Okay, let's talk about that. Let's diagram this out. Let's figure out, let's just keep pushing on that and moving. Your profit's not good. Okay, let's talk about that. Let's just keep pushing on it. We're not going to go crazy and kill ourselves or go get another job, or we're just going to press on that. The other one is somebody told me, he goes, you'd be, and this goes along the line with what we were just talking about a little bit. Told me about 6 years ago, he goes, you and everybody else would be a lot happier if you just lowered your expectations. And I thought, whoa, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And I started lowering my expectations, not lowering my goals or lowering my desire to achieve, but really lowering my expectations for people. I had high expectations. I ran a marathon at 3:50. When I was in grade school, I was the slowest kid in my class. The kid that got lapped, right? I don't think you can say this anymore, but I got lapped by the girls, which was shameful in the 70s. That was not something you wanted to happen. And I ran a marathon at 3:51:30, which was a pretty respectable time, and I trained for that. But it wasn't enough, because I wanted to run it at 3:45 or 3:30. I'm just like, we go on vacations for 5 or 6 weeks a year, but it's not enough. There's never enough to satisfy the desire, because my expectations are so high. You sell 40 units, why didn't you sell 50? You sell 50, why aren't you trying to get 100? Why isn't my wife better than she is? Why aren't we this and that? And the demands I was putting on my kids and my teammates and my friends. I mean, like, and I probably did this my whole life. In college, why can't you wake up from your coma and drink more beer with me? I was just always pressing. It was never enough. So I really started actively lowering my expectations, and I'm a lot more happy and stable now. But what we're discussing was it's pretty hard when you see everybody upping their expectation. Everybody goes to Hawaii now. I never knew anybody in my first 20 years of life that had been to Hawaii. Now everybody goes. People are going to Hawaii when during the short sale crisis where I was. Couldn't close on their house that they're selling short sale because they're in Hawaii. I'm like, that is weird. I've been to Disney World 7 times. Like, my parents never went to Disney World in their entire life, but our expectations in one generation have somehow gotten out of control. So I'm really lowering those without sacrificing my goals, but I'm just happy. I'm happy with my kids. I'm happy that my kids might not be the best at school. Like but and my son I have a youngest son who's just an amazing skier. Put on skis. I've been skiing my whole life. Amazing skier. Well, he decided he doesn't like to ski race. He likes to play basketball, and he is the smallest kid that you've ever seen in your life. And I'm like, you know what? It's okay. If you want to play basketball and you don't want to have what I see as your one chance to really crush it in life, that's okay. We can do that. Like, here's your basketball shoes. Great. Let's go have fun.
Yeah, that's really good. That's yeah, and it is crazy. I'm trying to think of a story. Man, I just had it, but I just forgot it. It's along the lines of, yeah, just the, oh yeah. So I, of course, being in this same mindset that you are, I have like high standards for everything. So I signed my wife and me up for marriage counseling. Like, I just found the counselor and I told Julie about it, and I'm like, this is going to be awesome, right? 50% of marriages end in divorce. Our marriage is strong as far as I know, but let's just sign up proactively. And Julie's like, what are we doing? People that are getting divorced do this, or people. And then so on the first session, the therapist, Julie has this feeling of like, she can't possibly meet my expectations. And then Julie just explains to this therapist, like, well, he's got 2 businesses. He just ran a marathon. He does, this is his 3rd mission trip. He wants to give a lot to the poor. He diets this way, and then all these things, right? And the therapist just broke her. You could tell she was out of persona, and she's like, that sounds exhausting. Like, being around you sounds freaking exhausting. And I've learned that, really, like, we just have this intensity that nobody can hang with us. And the people we love the most, you're going to push them away. And so I think that's really, really powerful.
Yeah, I know what I actually have noticed that even with friends, and I push them away. I can't enjoy golf. I have to, like, why can't we get better? Let's go take a lesson. Let's train. And they're like, no, we just want to play. I'm like, I don't even understand what that is like.
Yeah.
Like, why would you want to do something and be not better at it? And it's really I think an addiction in itself. It's a problem.
Yeah.
Because I can't settle down and I can't keep pushing. You want to, keep pushing people to excel. And a lot of people are like, yeah, we don't want to. We just want to go jogging.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to do that.
Well, this has been awesome, Greg. I appreciate you, and the fact that Real Estate B School gets a little part of your schedule is we don't take that lightly, the coaching that you do for us. So let's just there's so much good. This was a little different format, but it was really in line with where I think team leaders are struggling right now. The wrong model, constantly striving for who knows what, to get to the point where, like, we have someone in the top 5 in KW kill themselves last year. I know 2 big teams where they've gone through a divorce in the last year. Like, how much more of this stuff are we going to get after? And just taking that long game, like we talked about. So thank you, brother. Appreciate you. Let's go and crush it, but not to the point where we lose everyone in the process. Thank you, my brother.
Thank you.